Welcome. My name is Shelley Gladstein. I'm the host of Osteo Boston, a group that is dedicated to people who are seeking solutions for better bone health. And I'm excited tonight to introduce our speaker. And I want to just say, if you're here as a participant of Osteo Boston, thanks for being here. And if you're a YouTube listener, then I want to thank you, and please go ahead and subscribe or like the program. We'll know about future content. For now, I'm going to introduce our next person, Diane Berry-Preston, who's introducing the speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Shelley. Susan Williams is the founder of Pivot Integrative Health, a provider with a focus of natural options for promoting optimal bone health. At Pivotal Integrative Health, the focus is on wellness education. This also includes Zoom yoga and nutrition classes. Susan's education includes a master's degree in education with a counseling and human relations emphasis from Northern Arizona University. Training at Duke Integrative Medicine, received national board certification as a certified health and wellness coach. She's a registered yoga teacher, who also does training, which includes focus on osteoporosis. She is a registered herbalist from the American Herbalist Guild, which is a holistic nutritionist certification. She studied and was certified by Dr. Loren Fishman and the 12 pose protocol for osteoporosis. Susan and her husband David live on the coast of Oregon. Our subject tonight is Getting It Right, Calcium and Key Partner Nutrients with Susan Williams, holistic nutritionist. Will you please welcome Susan?
Thank you.
Hi. So nice to be here with you all this evening. Gosh, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here, and I have quite a bit to share this evening. Hopefully it won't be too overwhelming. I did provide a couple of little handouts to Shelley in case there are different websites that I'll reference, and I've got the website links to those. So let me go ahead and jump right in. Yes, I am a holistic nutritionist. I am a registered herbalist. I'm trained in yoga for osteoporosis. But people often ask me why I am so passionate about bone mineral density, including osteopenia and osteoporosis. And for me, it all started about 15 years ago on the day that the universe brought me to my knees. But actually, it was just one knee. At the time, I had a strategic marketing firm that I had a group traveling from New York for a property tour. I was hustling through a parking lot in the rain to meet up with them when I slipped in some motor oil and somehow flew up in the air and landed on one knee, shattering my kneecap. That really smarted. So after having my patella surgically wired back together and months of physical therapy, I found out that I had osteopenia, and I was pretty shocked. I ate well, I did semi-private Pilates twice a week, I hiked the trails by my house every single day, so how could this be true? But it was. So I set about the business of figuring out what to do about it, as the last thing I wanted in my life was to be limited in what I could do, or worse yet, becoming a burden to my husband and my family. So I kind of got busy and changed careers about 15 years ago. I got more serious about my diet, figuring out nutritional supplements and looking for ways to stay strong and healthy. And with all that, I was able to keep my bone mineral density at the osteopenia stage, but I kept looking because I really felt like there was probably more. So after I became a yoga instructor, one of my friends and colleagues and fellow yogis sent me a listing of additional trainings. And while looking over that list, I happened to notice mention of Dr. Loren Fishman's case study 12 pose protocol, where over 80% of those who had participated in the 2-year study saw an increase in bone mineral density. So I contacted his office in New York, I joined the study, and ultimately I was trained and certified to teach his program. So what about my progress after doing his protocol for at least 4 days a week for the last 2 years? Well, actually, it was after 2 years I had my first DEXA. I got for another one, so it'll be a total of 4. I was delighted with my DEXA scan showed that my spine, my bone mineral density had actually returned to very low normal range. I was like the bottom of normal, but I was so excited. And I still have osteopenia in both hips, but they too have shown some bone mineral density improvement. And so I will likely continue the practice of my nutrition and my yoga for the rest of my life. I can be reached at Susan at pivot-health.com or through my website at pivot-health.com or Susan at pivot-health.com. So I have a presentation that I want to share with you that I'm going to go ahead and share screen. Let's all keep our fingers crossed that the little genies are going to work here. So I bring this up. This is a presentation I've given many times, but I've recently updated it to include a lot of additional new information. So I'm kind of excited. All right. Can everyone see that all right? Give me a thumbs up. Okay. All right. Very good. So it's about more than calcium. That's the topic that we have today. So again, about this presentation, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a registered dietitian. We already talked about, I'm an herbalist and a holistic nutritionist and have some additional training, some national board certifications, and have a master's degree from NAU. I founded Pivot Integrative Health, which is an online resource with natural options for bone mineral density. And we teach yoga versus osteoporosis in live Zoom class format and holistic nutrition classes. This information is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat any illness or condition. The study of nutrition continues and the information can change tomorrow. You know how it is, like one day eggs are bad, the next day eggs are our best friend. So it's always important to keep up with the latest and greatest science as it comes forward. And so for specific concerns for your personal health and well-being, please connect with your healthcare team. So we're going to start with the big dog, calcium. Calcium is one of those things that I never thought about in my youth, and I now really wish that I had because I could have made kind of a profound difference in my life. But we end up where we end up. And so calcium, as you all probably know, this may be a complete review for many of you, but it's the most abundant mineral in our body. It is critical for healthy bones and teeth. As a matter of fact, 99% of calcium resides in our bones and in our teeth. And crazy, it's also used by nearly every single cell in our body. So it is, I think, the big dog in any discussion that we have about our bone mineral density. It's best to take calcium at meal times, as stomach acid helps to break it down, because it's not always just what we consume, it's what do we absorb. So what do we have bioavailable to us? There's a little bit of discussion back and forth, but I take calcium separate from other supplements so that they don't compete and interfere with each other. A lot of like magnesium, if you're taking a large dose of magnesium, can in fact fight with calcium for its pole position there. So I take my magnesium in the evening, I take my calcium with a meal. We'll talk about magnesium in a little greater detail here coming up. So calcium recommended dietary allowance. It does vary a little bit over the course of our lives, but not really dramatically. So for women aged 19 to 50, the recommended dose by many sources is that 1,000 milligrams is considered appropriate. But it's for men, it's over the age of 70. Men have a little bit of an edge over women with their natural testosterone. After the ages of 70, though, their bone mineral density does start to decline at about the same rate as it does for women. So 1,200 milligrams over age 50 is what's recommended, but that is 1,200 milligrams total calcium, not just supplementation. So one of my teachers, my trainers, she's someone that I I just adore is Dr. Taroni Lodog. She is a medical doctor. She ran the Center for Integrative Medicine at University of Arizona with Dr. Andrew Weil for many years. She's a medical doctor. She started out her life as a holistic herbalist, and so she has a lot of natural bend too. I did a 500-hour course with her, and she talks about how she has people come into her office, women saying, well, I'm really proud of myself. I've been taking my 1,200 milligrams of calcium by tablet every day. And Dr. Lodog will say to them, well, that's really great. But do you eat yogurt? Oh, absolutely. Love yogurt. Have it every day. What about cottage cheese and milk? What about leafy greens like spinach and kale? Oh, absolutely. And she said by the time she was done talking to these women, they were ingesting up to 2,400 milligrams of calcium a day, which is not good because our body still only has the capacity to accept and absorb so much, and then it's going to go somewhere. And that somewhere can very likely be, it loves soft, squishy tissue like our arteries. And it's just, we really want to make sure that we don't increase the odds of calcification in other areas of our body. So, still, focusing solely on calcium by our food or by supplementation is simply not enough because we need these partners all working together. There's this beautiful dance that goes on in our body every single day where nutrients and food are actually working together to help us to be successful. So we're going to take a look tonight. This is not an exhaustive list. This can be an entire, long course. So we're going to talk about what we can get through in an hour. We're going to talk about two of the really important vitamins, vitamins D and vitamin K. We're going to talk about magnesium. That's another important partner nutrient with calcium and absorption. We're going to talk about potassium and a little about zinc. So that's kind of how this is going to roll out. And then when we kind of start wrapping up that part of the presentation is where my new information is going to come into play. And I'm going to share with you some of the ways that I've identified how to make this work for not only my students, but for myself. I don't ever teach anything that I don't do unless I'm very clear that I haven't done this, but I've read a lot about it. So these are all things that I do in my day-to-day life. Vitamin D. Vitamin D is so interesting. It is a really complex thing, and it's not even actually technically a vitamin, because a vitamin is by nature and by definition something that needs to be supplemented into our body. But we have the ability to manufacture our own vitamin D just from the sunshine. So we really can't make enough just in our body unless we are exposed to sunshine or we're supplementing it. So it is something that is very important because it's an assistant to getting all of the calcium through our small intestine and away to our bones where we want it to go. So vitamin D is, again, there's 3 separate parts of processes that vitamin D goes through. So vitamin D3 is the form we get from sunlight to exposed skin and from foods like fatty fish, free-range eggs, and fortified vegetables. So the D3 is the one that's the most important to getting through to our bones. Now, one of the little fun things that I'll share with you is that mushrooms are very similar to humans. And we won't go into a big discussion on mushrooms because that's another entire course, but it's fascinating that you can take your culinary mushrooms when it's a sunny day out, you can just lay them on a plate or a little platter or something, put them out in the sun, and they will absorb vitamin D from the sun that stays with that vitamin. You can bring it in, you cook with it, you prepare it as you normally would, and you're getting a nice boost of vitamin D from the sun without actually sitting out in the sun. And it really doesn't take that much time in the sun to get enough vitamin D. It takes like 10 to 15 minutes of exposed skin. However, another caveat, and this is important to people who live in Boston or in the central coast of Oregon or anywhere above the 37th parallel line, there 6 months of the year, the light waves are too short to actually activate vitamin D in our system. So when I lived in sunny Arizona for the vast majority of my life, some almost 50 years, my vitamin D was great. It was exactly where I wanted it to be. I never supplemented it. I moved here to the coast of Oregon where it's not bright, sunny every day. It's cool and it's beautiful and I love it, but it's a much higher on the parallel line. So I went into the doctor and said, hey, could you please run a vitamin D test? And he said, sure. And he did. And my vitamin D level within 1 year had dropped almost in half. Boom, I was eating, everything else was the same. So I said, well, I guess I need to start supplementing. And he said, I think that's a great plan. I love to mention that to people because it does depend on the color of your skin. Fair skin people tend to absorb more vitamin D just from being in the sun. And it depends on your hereditary factors. It depends on a lot of things, even up to and including where you live. So I try to do a regular vitamin D test every year to figure out where I'm at and if I need to make any adjustments. So vitamin D3 remains in your body for just 1 to 2 days. So it's kind of a whoop. So we do have to kind of stay up on replenishing. So the first stop when D3 comes into your system, your liver converts D3 into 25-OHD, which circulates in your bloodstream for 2 to 3 weeks. So if you go for a vitamin D test, that's what they're going to be testing is this 25-OHD circulating in your bloodstream. So, and then there's one more stop. So once your vitamin D3 has gone through your liver, it goes to your kidneys, and there it converts to 25-OHD, from 25-OHD into a form called 1,2,5-D. And this is the fully activated form of vitamin D that's responsible for all the positive benefits of including 85% of the calcium we absorb in our small intestine. So if you're like a lot of people and you're running around with a really low vitamin D level and you're taking your calcium, you don't know why your bone mineral density is not improving, you could be just flushing 85% out through your system and only gathering up 15% through your small intestine, which is where calcium crosses over into our body. And it's only available for a few hours. So again, that's why we have to kind of like stay up on it. There's also a thing called the parathyroid gland, and this is from Dr. Lodog's book, and this is like one of my favorite books, my go-to books. It's called Fortify Your Life, Your Guide to Vitamins, Minerals, and More by Dr. Tironi Lodog. Oddly, it was just recognized as the 2024 best book on nutritional supplements, and it was written in 2016. I've had it since 2016, and it's still considered the gold standard. That was Very Well Health that acknowledged that book. So, and it's a really cool book because it's so readable and she's so accessible and tells wonderful little stories. Even tells a really fun story about how vitamin D was discovered. And anyway, Dr. Lodog talks about how when calcium levels fall, then your parathyroid gland has to kick in and secrete PTH, which is activating vitamin D, which increases intestinal absorption of calcium and decreases excretion of calcium by the kidneys. So again, that bioavailability is so important. Okay, so vitamin D, like calcium, doesn't have just one job. It interacts with 30 tissues in our body and affects over 1,000 genes. Wowie, big job going on here, Mr. Vitamin D or Ms. Vitamin D. And vitamin D deficiency is quite common in the United States. I like to tell this story about my nephew who I think is like 12 years old. This was just within the last couple of years. Just sick. They couldn't seem to get him better, and it just had him through all of these different nutritional counselors and doctors, and couldn't figure it out. And I have a wonderful friend in Denver who runs a clinic, and I talked to her about Brennan, and she said, I'll meet with him. Set up a Zoom. It'll just be as a consult, just a casual thing. But within 5 minutes, she looked at his parents and said, "What's his vitamin D level?" And they said, "What? We don't know. Did anybody test it?" No, they did not. Well, as it turned out, it was way beyond deficient. And I'll show you where he's at when we talk about kind of what those numbers are when you're looking at vitamin D. And it's a simple blood test. There's nothing that's, painful or, other than they have to draw a little blood, and results tend to come back very quickly. And again, we've talked about how it's not only necessary for strong bones, but for muscle contraction, nerve conduction, and general function overall. So there's a little bit of debate about vitamin D, just like there's almost debate about any topic that I know of. So there are many different levels that are considered to be sufficient. If you look on FDA guidelines, they will tend to tell you that anything larger than 25 nanograms per milliliter, which is just the measurement basis that they use. But others, like Dr. Lodog and Laura Pizzorno with AlgaeCal, and really all the thought leaders of today are saying that no, 40 to 70 nanograms per milliliter is really necessary for optimal health. You don't want to go a lot over that, but you need to see if you can fall in that range. In my case, I was in Arizona, and I did wear sunscreen. I lived on the Verde River, and we were out all the time, but I was still out in the sun a lot. I was running at 70 nanograms per milliliter like clockwork. 1 year here in sunny, not so sunny coast of Oregon, which I love, by the way, I dropped to 39. I was like, dang it, that was quick. But my nephew, who they couldn't figure out why he wasn't growing and why he was, having so many issues, he was at 14. So that's why, again, even for children, having it periodically tested is a very important thing. But because I'm super into food, I love food, I'm always wanting to know, how can I get this naturally? How can I get it? So vitamin D comes from sources, we touched about that a minute ago, just like fatty fish. Well, salmon's got so many benefits for us anyway. It's a natural go-to. It's also in free-range beef, free-range eggs, and free-range and organic and eggs is super duper important. The bioavailability of nutrients is dramatically different between factory farmed eggs and eggs that have actually been out and had some grass and some bugs to eat. So I'll try to not get on my soapbox very often here, but I do get kind of passionate about some of this stuff. Okay. So vitamin D is it is a fat soluble vitamin. So you also are best to take some fat in your meal whenever if you're going to be taking a vitamin D supplement. Then we're going to jump to another fat soluble vitamin, and that is vitamin K. I didn't know much about vitamin K before getting into all of this, my 15 years ago. But I have now come to fully respect how important this little vitamin is. It's readily available in dark leafy green vegetables such as kale and spinach, broccoli, avocados, and fermented foods. And there's more than one varietal of vitamin K. K1 is the one that enables blood to clot and reduces osteoclast activity, because there's the two osteo activities that are going on. There's the osteoblast, which is building new bone for us. And then there's the osteoclast, which is an important part of this system too, because it's coming in and it's cleaning up dead and dying cells and debris. So there's room for the osteoblast to lay down more material for bone mineral strength. But that's what vitamin K1 does. Vitamin K2, this is another one of the big things that's going on in here. It helps pull calcium into our bones and prevents calcium dropping into the soft tissue. Before they discovered this about vitamin K2, K1 and K2, there was this thing that was, hold on, let me just take a quick look at my notes. It was called, yeah. It was a situation where it's called the calcium paradox. There we go. I now have my words back again. So researchers started observing that there were postmenopausal women who were taking a lot of calcium in, but they were getting calcium in their arteries and having arterial issues, and their bone mineral density was decreasing. So here they thought, if we just pump in enough calcium, everything will be great. But as it turns out, no, there was something that was missing. It was K2. And K2 is really, it's a little more difficult sometimes to get because a lot of people don't care for fermented foods. I do. I love myself some good sauerkraut, not sauerkraut that's been made with vinegar, but sauerkraut that was fermented, as people did so, most of their lives. Things like natto, that's one I haven't been able to cross over. I would love to love natto. I bought some dried natto and I'm experimenting with it. But the taste of natto is very strong, and I am a flexible eater. I love most food, but that's the thing about K2. And you can also get K2 from things like chicken liver and chicken breast and ground beef. There's a third K, it's K3, but nobody really talks about it. It's just a synthetic version of vitamin K. But K2 is the one that it acts as a little traffic cop. It's like, okay, calcium, let's go, and helps direct calcium over to the bones and away from our arteries and the soft tissues. But here's the note about vitamin K is if you are taking a blood thinner with Coumadin, such as warfarin, that's to prevent blood clots. So you really need to check in with your healthcare provider because you don't want those two actions kind of competing with each other. I've heard that some blood thinners like Eliquis, that's not the situation, but big caveat from me is if you're on blood thinners, check in before you start taking a bunch of K2 or K vitamins in general. So Dr. Lodock says that eating a healthy diet rich in vitamin K and taking multivitamin with 150 to 300 micrograms per day is a great target. But as with everything, again, work with your healthcare provider for your own specific situation. Magnesium. I sometimes call this magnificent magnesium because it does, again, so many lovely things for us. It is the fourth most abundant mineral in our body. Chronic low levels have been linked to high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, migraines, depression, osteoporosis, and asthma. Dr. Lodock's father almost died because he was on some acid suppression, PPIs, for many years, which you're not supposed to be on for years. You're supposed to be on for a period of many weeks. to help get things under control. But it had depleted his magnesium to this bare minimum level, and he was hospitalized. They had to give him massive infusions because it had impacted him. He was very near death. So magnesium can be one of those things that, again, we don't necessarily, before I was doing all this, I didn't think about it. But magnesium does wonderful other things for us. It helps us be regular in our bowel movements. For people who have migraines, like Dr. Lodog, magnesium at a high enough level can actually manage allopathically just avoiding migraines. It can be a wonderful, wonderful addition. So the RDA, the recommended daily amount for men is 420 milligrams, and for women it's about 320 milligrams. And that's what I take, is a supplement that has about 320 milligrams. And that's, again, through supplementation. If there's some magnesium in your food, it doesn't tend to add on top of each other as significantly as like calcium can do. So the upper limit by supplement for women is considered to be 350 milligrams, unless you're under the care of a medical provider. And in the case of Dr. Lodog, who suffered from migraines much of her life, she can take 400 and 500 milligrams and be fine and still be avoiding getting those debilitating migraines. So here's kind of the breakdown for the US intake of magnesium. About 55% are below that recommended daily amount, and another 25% are at or above, but then there's the 20% that are significantly below, and they're the ones that really are at risk for other issues. A couple other little things that are important about magnesium is that due to its regulation metabolism of calcium, vitamin D is also a partner of vitamin D. They work together and partner up. It can be one of the key minerals that makes up our bones. And as magnesium levels decrease, bones can become brittle. And that's no bueno for any of us either. We want that, just like the tree blowing in the wind, where we're able to ebb and flow with the little things that happen in life. So one other kind of important thing is that large amounts of fiber can impair magnesium absorption. So that's why it's kind of recommended to take it before bed. It also, for many people, helps you sleep. And but high calcium intake over 2,500 milligrams a day, you shouldn't be doing that anyway, and high sodium diet can increase magnesium excretion, so even compounding the need to supplement or get it somewhere else. So magnesium, like a lot of things, it comes in various forms. Magnesium oxide is the least expensive, but it is most likely to cause cramping and diarrhea. The chelated magnesium in the forms of malate, glycinate, and bisglycinate are gentler on the stomach and more easily absorbed. So another little caution for magnesium is avoid magnesium supplements if you have poor kidney function, and take only under the care of your healthcare provider. Potassium. Another critically important nutrient, and one that is best accessed through food. Supplementing it is really tricky. I don't know exactly why, but I just know that it is. So the recommended daily intake sounds like a lot, 4,700 milligrams. That sounds like yikes. How could you ever get that for your food? But when you take a look at things that potassium is naturally in, just one baked potato with the skin is 920 milligrams. A sweet potato, 700 milligrams. 2 ounces of tomato paste. Who knew? This was like a total surprise to me. 660 milligrams. A cup of plain yogurt, you're getting your calcium, and you're getting 660 milligrams of potassium. A banana, 422 milligrams. Slice up a little banana in that yogurt. So other things that potassium does. It's really great if you have high blood pressure to manage your potassium level. Heart disease. It's one of the things that they are recognizing that it's important for that. Avoiding stroke, infertility, and possibly even cancer. So the little graphic over here is just, again, the symptoms of, low potassium are, we could have headache, confusion, you could have dry coughing or sore throat, nausea, vomiting, or even up to myalgia and fatigue. So those are just a few more things that that happen when we have insufficient potassium. Okay, now we're going to just jump on into zinc. Zinc is the second most abundant trace mineral. Trace mineral just meaning you just need a little tiny bit in the body, but it's important. It is often low in those with osteoporosis. So with zinc, some research suggests that zinc with copper, manganese, and calcium may protect against postmenopausal bone loss. Now, zinc is also found in beef and chicken, but its highest amount is in oysters. And not everybody loves oysters, but you can get it through beef and chicken. Some of these are a little more difficult if you're vegan or vegetarian, but it is possible, again, to work around and supplement to a level that will work for you. It is involved in the mineralization of the bone, which increases the bone's strength, making it less likely to break. That's why, again, we brought zinc to the party here tonight to talk about. That mineralization is an important function that happens within our body. And again, vegetarians may need 50% more zinc, as it is harder to absorb from phytonutrients being plants. Recommended daily allowance amount, again, we said it's just a little bit. For men, it's 8 milligrams, and for women, men, it's 11 milligrams, for women, it's 8 milligrams. And the upper limit is 40 milligrams, and you may have observed that sometimes you get people will talk about, oh, you're feeling a cold coming on. Get out the vitamin C and the zinc, and it can be effective protocol for colds and flu, even COVID. Dr. Lodog was recommending that you're attentive to vitamin C and zinc during COVID. You just would only want to do it for a short time, not continue that on for the rest of your life. Okay, so that's a lot. So what to do? Number one, figure out what your unique body needs. And I found a tool that is free that you can go out and you can put in your information and find out exactly the levels of nutrients that are recommended. Is this 100% perfect? No, because I'll show you the things that it is going to measure, but your unique body is probably going to have other things that you may want to supplement into or out of based on, your full-on physical situation. But we'll talk about how you can go out and do a quick little quiz thing, and it's a very legitimate tool. Okay, then figure out what you're already ingesting. So I'm going to share with you a link to a calcium calculator. So you can go in and you can just add in the things that you're already consuming, and it'll automatically calculate out for you what you're consuming on a regular-ish basis. We all do things a little different through our lives, but a lot of us, we have some routines to our nature. So I'll give you that. And then also I'll point you in the direction of something I found at one of the California State Universities that does a really pretty amazing analysis of your food intake for $50. I thought it was a bargain. And then talk with your healthcare team. These tools can be helpful. Some doctors are like, oh no, really, you were on Google again. No. These are actually, government approved things. This is not just going out and looking up on Google. Okay, so this is the first
I hate these, but
figuring out your unique body's needs.
are they?
I sent to Shelley the links. So we don't have to try to write this whole thing down because it's kind of a long link. But there is this daily requirement intake calculator, and it says it's for healthcare professionals, but it's absolutely so straightforward. You won't have any problems at all. So you just go to this link. And I went ahead and just did screenshots of the pages because sometimes when I'm trying to pull up other websites, it gets really complicated and the system doesn't track along. So this is still on page 1. Just to ask you, put in your information, female, male. Okay, do I want this measurement as standard, like, or do I want it in metric? Put in your age, put in your height, put in your weight. Then we go on, and then it just it also will ask you your activity level. Are you sedentary? Are you sort of active, very active? And then it prints out this really nifty report. So these are the values that I had typed in. And it figured out my body mass index and my estimated caloric needs every day. But then it went down and it said that, for somebody my age, another female, somebody who weighs what I weigh and is as tall as I am and has a similar activity level, you can find out how many carbohydrates do you need, how much total fiber, how many grams of protein do you need each day? What about fat? What about vitamin A? What do I need? What do I need for vitamin C? And so it'll give you this kind of really comprehensive little report all the way down to vanadium, which, then that's a 0. So you don't have to worry too much about supplementing for that. But this is just a neat little calculator that you can go out and just get a sense, because it gets so freaking overwhelming when you're standing there in the vitamin aisle and it's like good Lord, my goodness, there are so many choices there. Well, if you know kind of what the upper limits, tolerable upper limits, that's the other thing. If you're taking a variety of supplements, if they have multiple things in them, you can like cross over that upper limit thing and make yourself crazy. So that's why this I thought was a really neat thing, and all of my students really loved it. So okay, so number 2, figure out what you're already ingesting. I looked for something for quite a while that could tell me in excruciating detail what I was ingesting. So this is just a calculator that I built. When I say I mean Bobby, my programmer. So this is just something that's free. So you can just go, I got the link there, and you just go on and you go through and you can put in your number of servings, like, oh yeah, I drink 1 8-ounce of cow's milk every day. Okay, great. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Ooh, yeah, I really love cream cheese. So I have like a little serving of cream cheese, and just look on the package for what a serving is. For this, it's 1 ounce. And you're going through and you're looking at, tuna. Okay, wow, look at those sardines. Yeah, I did eat 2 ounces of sardines. That was 240 milligrams of calcium. Woohoo! All righty, that was good. But then after you've gone through and chosen all the things that you already eat, you can go ahead and customize. If there's something that you're eating that has a good boost of calcium, you can just type it in. You can customize this just for you, and then put in for whatever 1 serving is and the amount of calcium, and it'll go ahead and calculate it out for you. And so what this little system does, is at the end of putting in everything you're eating, it already knows that you're a woman over the age of 50, because we just programmed it that way, because I only have like 1 man in my program. So it knows that the calcium, your goal is 1200, and it's automatically going to say, wow, Susan, you only need to supplement 500 milligrams of calcium a day, which is really where mine comes out. So I know that I don't want to be taking 1,000 milligrams when I'm already ingesting 800 milligrams or more. So this is a kind of fun, again, an easy little deal. You can do it, it's not like you can't go in and change it. It's just always available to you. So I wanted to take this to the next level for myself and for my students, because I was really thinking that there had to be a way to figure out where we're all at, because I do not make individual recommendations on vitamins. I'm an educator. I give people information and tools so that they can go out and make smart decisions. But without knowing what's going on in your body, it's hard to tell. And I thought, I'm like, well, I eat pretty good. I would love to have that validated. So there's this thing at CSUN. It's a California State University at Northridge that I just happened onto one day, that there's this thing called the Maryland Magnesium Center for Food Sciences, and there's a little link to that on nutrition and dietetics. Their website's a little wonky. I had a little trouble getting around it and threading my way through, so I went ahead and included the links of where you would want to just go straight to if you were wanting any more information about this. So what you wanted to do is get to this page that has the products and services, and you click on that, and that's where it takes you down to the fact that they have a diet analysis where you keep a food log for just 3 days, and then you go in and you type in the foods that you consumed for 3 days, and you gotta like make yourself promise, I'm gonna do this honest. I made sure that I included Taco Tuesday as one of my days, because every Tuesday I go to the cool little taco place here and have my 2 tacos. And, I wanted to make sure that I'm not just, oh no, I eat completely clean and I never, no, you're not doing yourself a favor. You got to just like be honest and type it all in. And so the analysis is a nutritional assessment that allows technicians to analyze patterns, and it tells you specifically from everything that I'm eating over a 3-day period. For me, I came out, I was like, dang, I am not eating nearly enough whole grains. Who knew? I eat a ton of vegetables. I thought there was plenty of fiber in there. As it turns out, it was not. So I've gone in and I wasn't eating enough fruit, because again, I think of fruit as having too much sugar, and, but I know that there are ways that I can have fruit that's not the case. So anyway, no matter who you are, I think it's information is power, and to manage yourself and get better. I think that's an important, this is an important tool. I didn't think $50 was an unreasonable amount. This is a copy of just like my own, what I got. It showed that, over a 3-day period on average, I'm, taking in this like 1,522. They're recommended I take in 26 calories. I'm like, really? Well, thank you. That's great to know. But then like fiber, I was taking in like 22.17. So I'm only getting about 71% of the total dietary fiber, including all the vegetables. Because I try to eat like 7 vegetables a day. That's my goal. But it was just, I thought it was a really fascinating tool. And then they do have dietitians who, for a fee, and I don't know what that fee is. I didn't seem like any of this was all that expensive to me, but considering what a lot of other things that I've invested in my health on, are who will meet with people and help them get through. So yes. So yeah, with this, I was actually getting 560 milligrams of calcium a day just through what I'm doing on a daily basis. So I was already getting 46%. So I really only need to supplement about 600 milligrams, 600 milligrams a day. Okay, so the contact information is here, but it's also in the sheet that I gave Shelly. I don't know if she has the ability to post that for you or not, but if you get jammed up or something, you're free to contact me, just email me and
Yes, I'll send it. No worries.
Perfect, great. Okay, so wrapping it up, bringing it home. Here we go. Talk with your healthcare team. Give them this wonderful information. We can also help change the world because we can also help educate medical care professionals, because honestly, nutrition is not something that doctors typically study in school. I love doctors. I love many doctors. I've also fired several doctors because they either dismissed me or just didn't want for me to live the life that I want to live, going at like, yeah, we'll talk about a medication some other time. Right now, I'm on a path to see what I can do myself. So I try to provide them information. I try to be pleasant about it. But that's kind of the whole thing with that. Okay, so ladies, and then there was any gentlemen out there, I'm going to stop sharing and be quiet because I've like run up 55 minutes of my 60 minutes. So here we go. Stop share.
Let me bring myself up too. That was so awesome.
Thank
So
you.
much of it is so things I never had any of these tools before. So, and I'm sure the people on the call also has not. I want to remind them though that if you want to ask a question, would you take a few questions, Sue?
Sure. Mhm.
Okay, so I wanted to say in the event that you want to ask a question, I'm going to go ahead and ask some questions. So Marion asks, Sue, when taking Timlos, which is
Mhm.
osteoporosis medication,
Uh-huh.
should we still ingest 1,200 milligrams of calcium since the
I will say, please defer to your healthcare provider
Okay.
because I know the names of the different bisphosphates and different types of medications are available. I do not know the interactions and I don't know how to adjust for that.
Okay.
But
All
it's a
right.
great question. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Deborah asks, will the regular serum magnesium blood test give an accurate read on our nutritional state? Do you believe?
I will for your vitamin D, but it will, and I did have a blood test that recently that showed my circulating calcium serum level, but that didn't necessarily provide me with any information that was useful. It didn't give me any indication into my bone health. So still at this point in time, the DEXA is considered the gold standard if you talk to people like Dr. Fishman, who's 80 years old and been studying this his entire life. So I defer to him on a lot of that.
Absolutely. The other half of that question was, which form of magnesium do you recommend for osteoporosis?
I recommend the one that you can tolerate. And so I think that the ones that I mentioned, the
Malate.
malate and glycinate, I take a blend of a couple of those that's just in a form that I like. So I just would, a lot of people want to try oxalate, but you'll know it's not right for you if you're spending way too much time in the bathroom.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. Lori asks, outside of being contraindicated for someone taking anticoagulants,
Mhm.
is there any evidence that supplemental vitamin K predisposes someone to an excessive coagulation of blood clots?
Again, I would just be very, very careful about not exceeding any of the upper limits. I have not read any studies that have indicated that, but I think it's a very thoughtful question and one, again, I would ask if I had a concern about my blood viscosity and blood clots. I would definitely be talking to somebody at a higher pay grade than me.
Okay. And also, did you say that potassium, Tish wants to know, Susan, did you say that it would help with fatigue? And if that's true, then how much?
So potassium is one that you want to get through your food. And potassium, if you have an insufficient amount of potassium, fatigue can be one of the symptoms, but there are so many things that can be a cause of fatigue that I wouldn't take it as the one having fatigue is equating directly with a K2 imbalance.
Right.
I'm
And
sorry, potassium imbalance. I misspoke, so thank
I
you.
know personally, I had trouble with magnesium, and until I
Mhm.
changed to the malate and glycinate blend, I
Yeah,
was having a lot of trouble. And Tish also mentions she's having trouble. So my question would be, take a look at that, right?
yeah,
So
absolutely,
um,
absolutely.
also,
So there was another thing that I included as a link on the page, which I failed to mention, is
okay.
as you get it figured out what you want to supplement, there's a wonderful resource called consumerlab.com. I have belonged to them for at least 10 years, I think. And it has a fee attached to it. I think it's like, it equates to $4.38 a month. So I think I pay $105 for a 2-year subscription, but you can go on and check and see what's the top magnesium that's out there. And they do a really nice long discussion about it. And so that's a really, really good way to decide what you want to take as a supplement.
It is, and it's a wonderful online journal.
It is.
Okay, so let's see.
Yeah, I know.
Also on the same from the same person, Tish, she'd like to know the 2,000 milligram calcium upper limit. I'm not sure what the question was about that, Tish. Are you saying that? I think what I heard you say is figure out from your calcium calculator if you need
Yes.
that much.
You
And so-
probably really, the thought leaders in today's medical industry that I am following and paying attention to say shoot for 1,200 milligrams total. You really, some days, sure, you're going to shoot over that because you had, I don't know, a big cheesy something or, you know, a bunch of sardines or whatever. So I think you just don't want to regularly be at that 2,000 or over.
Yes, because most of us are 1,200, and we've had researchers on here who say 800.
And that's typically only the supplemented maximum. That's where it gets a little bit confusing, is the supplemented versus the total.
Exactly.
So, and after age of 70, they say that you may, in fact, again, be able to back that number down. So that's some ongoing research, because all I'm talking about today is what I believe and know today and honestly, I go through my presentations before I do one, especially with a lovely group like you all who have such a vested interest. I want to make sure that I'm speaking from the most current information that I can find.
Yeah, Susan, you had a chart up that said upper limit being 2,000. So I was just a little bit confused about that.
Yeah, that's just that chart is just what is the upper limit, and 2,000 milligrams is considered to be like the yeah. And a lot of people, they get really enthusiastic, especially after you just get your diagnosis. You're like, I want to take a lot. I'm one of those people. I'm like, well, if a little's good, a lot must be great. And now, as I'm getting a little older, I'm starting to realize, no, it's not.
Exactly.
A lot of people, they would take 1,200 and supplement, and then they were still eating all of these other things, and you could easily be at 2,400 milligrams. So that's a good clarifying question.
A couple questions. People wanted to know, do you have any prejudice against, if you will, Tums as a calcium supplement?
So Dr. Lodog, who I typically defer to, does not think that's a particularly good idea, because this is a whole other large discussion. Digestion is critical in absorbing our nutrients. So we ingest our nutrients, they go down our esophagus, they take their first stop at the stomach, which is, there's an upper sphincter and a lower sphincter. And when it hits the stomach, it goes in, that sphincter is supposed to close. And then all the stomach acid comes in to break everything down so that it gets prepared to go into the small intestine and then cross the small intestinal barrier and get into the bloodstream and into our system. Anytime that we are doing anything that is slowing down acid production, we're impacting the digestibility of the food. And according to Dr. Lodog, let me see if I have her other book here. Yes, I recommend this book to a lot of my students who have, and I am not affiliated with anybody I've talked about. Nobody's sending me any money. So just so you know, this is stuff that I actually I know her personally. I go to her ranch every summer for an intensive. Healing Heartburn Naturally talks about so many really wonderful natural options that you can do other than the aluminum-based, Tums or PPIs or anything that's going to just cut down. She says that it typically is not excess stomach acid that is the problem, that it is the sphincter not closing securely, and that's how the stomach acid is getting back up. And heartburn, I don't know who names things because it has nothing at all to do with the heart. It's just, it's the burning of that escaping acid because the stomach is covered with this really thick mucus so that it can be protected from the acid, allowing the acid to do its job and break everything apart. But there's no protection in the esophagus. The cells are completely different. So
Very interesting.
yeah. So the name of the book in the chat, yeah, sure. It's Healing Heartburn Naturally by Dr. Taroni Lodog. I just got it off of Amazon.
That's great. So good to hear. I
Yeah.
want to read both of them. What about oxalates? It's the big buzzword in
Oxalates is another big buzzword, and it's for people who have issues with it, it's quite the issue. And so there are some greens that have a much lower oxalate level, like I love baby arugula, and I tend to eat that in lieu of spinach. Spinach certainly has, it's one of the highest offenders of oxalate levels. They say that you can freeze the spinach before you cook it and that will somehow minimize the oxalate levels. I don't know. I haven't seen the actual scientific research where they've taken, 50 pounds of spinach and they've done, the test and the, all of the control study. But yeah, oxalates, they are just something that they're not bad. They are just something for certain people that can be quite problematic. So I would just tend to avoid some of those. I probably would avoid spinach, even though spinach is a lovely, lovely vegetable that has many, many wonderful attributes to it. So
we
choices.
actually had a researcher on recently, and he said that if you were to counteract the spinach, for example,
Mhm.
with a higher calcium food at the same time, you would negate the problem. You
Mhm.
eliminate it by offsetting it. But anyway, just would love to hear how you let's see. Oh, would love to hear a little bit more about Dr. Fishman's 12 pose protocol.
So there's information about it on my website, but it is just the protocol that he developed over many years. He was a yogi. He studied with Mr. Iyengar in India when he was first out of medical school. He went and lived in India for a year. And he had this revelation that yoga was incredibly powerful for the bones. And again, it's a longer, discussion of where these exercises actually, hold on. Oh, I have my fancy pants little tool here. This is my little demonstration tool. So this is your bone and these are your muscles. And as you are exercising and you get into these specific poses and you hold them for, it's a minimum of 30 seconds. He's now saying a minimum of 40 seconds. And you do these exercises 3 times a week. You're actually activating Wolff's Law, which is something that they use when they're building bridges by creating this tension and this resistance. And that's what's stimulating the osteoblast activity. So he identified 12 poses about 10 years ago. He started a research study. It had about 950 women in it. And of those who completed the poses at least 4 times a week for at least holding the pose 30 to 40 seconds. If you hold it less than 12, you're wasting your time. If you hold it more than 72, you're also wasting your time. You need to be in that sweet spot. And you're doing it with intensity. You're not just doing your flow yoga. You're like, I am like in this pose. I am a warrior too. I am stretching and reaching, and I'm creating all this tension in my body. That is how it works. So he started this, did this very scientifically based, been studied. It's published in multiple journals that 83% of the women, because it was only women, who did these poses for the prescribed amount of time and everything, increase their bone mineral density. And that was from my personal experience. And I've had many students that have also had a similar experience. He says you can do these 12 poses in 12 minutes. No, you can't. You cannot get in and out of the poses that. So when I teach my morning class, I tell people it's 25 minutes because first off, we do a little bit of a warm up. We check in with everybody. We have but he also teaches them. I still teach primarily in the beginner version because again, it's more about your intensity and the length of time that you're doing the pose. And so most people are able to do it. And it's not something that you have to have been a yogi all your life. Honestly, the people who I train that have been yogis all their life struggle more because they're like, no, that's not how triangle's supposed to go. And it's like, I understand. And in a flow yoga, and she's like, no, you wouldn't put these two poses back to back. And I said, I understand. You can choose to do whatever you would like. I'm going to do what I was trained in because it's working for me. So I do encourage people to go ahead and use whatever they would like. But I decided if I was going to commit to this, then I'm on the train. I'm going to go.
Great. That's right. Well, this has been incredibly informative.
Thank you, Shelley.
So thankful that you suggested or that Genevieve suggested that I speak with you. And it's been a real pleasure to have this time with you, Susan. And would you like to share the screen about your
the little flyer?
Would you want me to share that?
If you'd like, yeah, sure. That's
okay.
Just a little bit about what it is that we do and why we do it. And yeah, so there's little tiny pictures, little tiny thumbnails. So I have to hire Bobby. I hate like doing photographs of myself and stuff. It's like, no, it'll be fine. So those are just some of the examples of the poses. We typically do use a chair as a prop. It is not chair yoga. Do not be confused with that. People are like, no, wow, I'm a little tired now because we work with intensity. But the Happy Bones membership includes the live Zoom. I only offer it at one time of the day, and I know it's not a convenient time for everybody. It's at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. So if you're on the East Coast, it's kind of a mid-morning thing. I also do live open door sessions. So in addition to training, I really like to sit and talk with people a bit too. So I have twice a month, I have one open door session that's on the movement and poses, and then the other one is on nutrition and any specific questions. And then whenever somebody's new to the program, I do a 30-minute one-on-one personal appointment to make sure we go over the poses and everybody's comfortable. And then I've got a large video library because I do these. So what you just experienced was called my deep dive on this topic. And I do a deep dive each month. So they're on different topics that are recorded in there. So yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
That's
great.
Well, thanks for that.
Thank you for your time tonight, and we appreciate you.
Shelley, it was delightful meeting you. Thank you so much.